And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Nicola Light, Reiki Master, Galactic Shaman, intuitive healer, and soul-to-soul mentor, whose near-death experience was the driving force for her to discover who she is. Nicola, thank you for joining me and welcome.
Thank you so much for allowing me to share my story on your channel. I'm really excited to be here, so thank you for that.
Well, we're excited for you to be here as well. And if you don't mind, let's start with your series of traumas and your NDE that started off your spiritual journey.
It was around about 2012 when an awful lot of light workers started to awaken. There was a massive batch of them, shall we say, and I was in that batch of light workers. It came about through some life traumas of the death of my grandmother and the loss of contact with my mother and father, and massive sort of things that happened that just sort of kept on coming, which really sort of shone a light on how unhappy I was in my life back then. And I was in a long-term relationship that I really wasn't very happy in either. And it was just sort of like you was on a bit of a rat race, it was sort of like a little hamster wheel, and just dealing with life generally. So so there was a big sort of upsurge of like questioning that sort of came in, that I was like, well, what's going on? What's life all about? And I'm sure many of your listeners would be either of going through it right now with their searching and finding this video, or it would have been that you've gone through that process and then things start to shift and change. So it's as a result of these traumas that I went through that then I started getting really, really, really deep into meditation. And sort of meditation to me was this real sort of go-to experience that I really needed to do. And I was doing it at a local little spiritualist church, but there's some beautiful, beautiful souls there. And I was really sort of drawn with their sort of heart that was sort of there, almost like mothering sort of energy about them. And it was sort of like going along sort of like once a month. And I was thinking, I really need to go more than once a month. I thought, hang on a minute, what I can do it at home. So I then started doing meditation at home. And there was one particular summer that I was literally in the garden and I just would not stop, just wanting to get out of the space of the children, out of my ex-husband, going to the bottom of the garden. And I would sit there for a good sort of 4 or 5 hours and just literally just go deep into my meditation. And then one particular day, it was quite a very strange event that I actually, during the meditation itself, I felt a massive, great big ball of energy that sort of came up from my coccyx area, up right at the base of my spine. And I physically felt this energy just come up. And I didn't know what this energy was at all. And as I sort of concentrated and went deeper into it, it sort of moved up into my abdomen, up, and then it sort of like expanded into my heart. It was just this, it was a real conscious physical ball of fire that sort of upsurged right up to here. Then I started doing sort of some research into what is that. So Kundalini, found out what all that was about. And then sort of like went again deeper into research, sort of like, you know, sort of going all across the YouTube, searching, you know, sponge. At every moment I would be listening to YouTube videos and wanted to sort of find out more information. And then I sort of went in deeper and I literally sort of brought that energy up through the throat, up through, and then pushed it out the top of my head. And when I did that, I experienced an awful lot of physical reactions with my body also. And then during evenings, when I used to go into meditation, when I was falling off to sleep, again, meditation was my main focus, that I went in, going deeper inside of myself. I then started to physically shake the body, which was sort of, again, I was just observing what was going rather than getting too scared about the whole experience. And then during one of those moments, I had some audio sort of voices come in with my guides coming online, really sort of coming in, deepening the connection. I started getting visions come in, light codes come in, geometric shapes. They're just all being presented almost like a projector of information, just kept on flashing through from my third eye. And there was moments, actually, several times, that I actually would open my eyes and it would be projected up on the ceiling. So it wasn't only when I actually closed my eyes and I could see it behind my closed eyelids, it would literally come up in front of me and I'd be like, okay, this is really different. I thought I was going a little bit insane, and so did my family, and they would question me. And notice I actually said my ex-husband, so I'm no longer with him because he just really didn't understand it. And then I got into energy work. And with energy work, I then started, so the Reiki journey. And during practicing my Reiki, my hands started to move when I was actually working with people as I was starting my practice up, and my hands started moving around a bit, and I questioned, well, why is this happening then? So always questioning and pushing through to my next level, because if I knew that I could go deep and bring up all this massive energy, and my breath started kicking in and I'm starting to really feel the energy moving through me, what's beyond that? So this sort of like template, this understanding of myself, really sort of like, okay, so if I've reached this understanding, what's this? What's above this? And then what's above this? And what's above this? So this is my sort of intuitive sort of wants and needs to expand into what is this reality all about. So from the hands starting to sign information, my codes started coming through with my voice. So there was one particular evening I sort of sat up after sort of being asleep for a little while in bed. I sat up and started speaking this really strange language. It just sort of like just came out of my mouth, and luckily my ex at the time had gone on a business trip, so it was quite good timing with the universe. And that started come through, and I was really unaware of what even light language was all about. I was like, well, I was confusion beyond, beyond it all. But all the time, I kept on sort of being shown back to pivotal points of my life, and which was what you're talking about, which was the near-death experience that I experienced when I was 4. And it was something that was spoken about within the family, because I have no contact with my parents anymore. Through the trauma that occurred. I can't really sort of question too much into what that was all about, but from my understanding, from my own perception, is that I was walking at the beach, and in England you have like these sort of little wooden sort of barriers, and if you jump from one side to the other, it might be shallow one side, but the other side might be really, really deep. And I was unaware of that, and I was just there playing with my family, my sisters, and I was jumping on and off of the shallow side, which was really very lovely, and I remember it distinctly. And then I jumped the other side. Now when I jumped the other side, I literally just, there was nothing, there was absolutely nothing. But then I woke up on the beach surrounded by many, many people, and they brought me back. So as a young teenager, apparently sort of resuscitated me and brought me back. But I remember at that sort of point is that something shifted within me, that I felt that I didn't belong. It was like prior to that, everything sort of sat in quite nicely, and I felt that I was fine with my family. Everything sort of moved through that sort of space of, oh, it's my mum, my dad, my sisters, and just a normal sort of relationship with them all. But after that event, everything started to sort of be a little bit more concerning for me. I went into sort of fear of the dark, and and if I remember sort of walking out with my father with a torch and shone it up at the stars. And I used to think to myself, don't shine it up the stars, they're going to find you. And I would be like, why am I thinking this? Why am I thinking that shining a torch up would be that someone's going to find me? So a galactic, or we would say maybe an ET or an alien, this whole sort of hiding came into being. And it was as a result of when I was about that age, as I started to sort of grow up through that process. Now, if we sort of fast forward that onto my trauma and how I then started sort of really going deeper and pushing through my boundaries, the light language came in massively. And I started to do self-coding, and I started using that during my practice. And I would question every time, well, what is this? What are you showing me? How is that working? So I sort of kept on going and pushing through, and understanding. But what they did, my guides did, was they started to create this beautiful foundation about being aware of my physical body, the breath work. What did that actually mean? What did that entail? And at this sort of stage, once I started working on myself and getting downloads of information, I stopped searching. I stopped researching anything on YouTube. That just all sort of like just sort of went by the wayside. And I started to really get deep into me and finding out my answers from within myself. And we hear about that all the time, don't we? You know, your answers are all within. And during this sort of process of all of that, I had people around me that were sort of like-minded people, spiritual people, that really didn't understand light language. And they started to put their own fears of not understanding what light language was all about, and started saying to me, you shouldn't be doing this. If you don't understand what it is, you shouldn't be expressing your light language. So I went through a little bit of a like questioning what is this all about. And there was a particular moment, it was lasted for about 10 days, where I connected with some energy that forced me into, I'm not going to say the word forced me into it, because I wouldn't have chosen it at the time if I would have known about it. And I was really very upset with the experience. But what happened is that I had an infiltration of my energy as I connected to a lady that was in New York, and I connected with her energy doing some distant healing. I got into a little bit of ego about, look what I can do, you know, a little bit of spiritual ego, look at me, I'm so good at what I'm doing. And the universe sort of slapped me down a bit, because when I connected to her energy, the energy that came through connected to my energy, and I had an infiltration that came forward that tried to shut me down. And that was a real big turning point of understanding darkness and light. So everything that I was experiencing at the time was beautiful light, fluffy bunnies, fairies, dragons coming in, all this were like, wow, look at this, you know, and like dragons presenting themselves, angelics coming in, all these wonderful beings started coming in. I was like, wow, this is amazing. But there was this point, and I see this an awful lot in people that really start to shine their light, is there's this stage where they're very susceptible to be infiltrated. And what happens is as we sort of open up the light and we're not totally aware of who we are, we can be seen. And if we look at it from a conspiracy, darker force sort of infiltration perspective within this game of life, is that I was found. And with that, then my energy was really shut down. There was AI infiltration that hooked into my energetic field. And then I found synchronicities to work through that process of releasing the energy from inside of myself, which assisted me to become a galactic shaman. Now, a shaman upon the earth would be somebody that would transmute negative energy through their field. They would work with somebody that has maybe an entity attachment. They would come in, this is quite an old way of doing it, but this is how I began to understand the density. I'd connect to energy, and then I would take on the energy from the person, transmute it through my energy field, filter it through my heart, and then the person's nice and clear, but I've taken it on, but I need to clear it through myself. But it was a journey. And at the time, Jeff, honestly, I used to sit there and go like, why would I even choose this to be part of my journey? Why would I choose to transmute negative energy through my field? This is ridiculous. It's so much hard work. I'd sit there for like 6-7 hours trying to clear my energy. But through the process of knowing how to transmute, I then sort of like, whoa, actually, this is really very good. And then at that time, then I started getting stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. And with understanding what my capabilities were to transmute negative energy through my field. And then it then started to really sort of kick in to heighten my understanding, downloaded information through the clearing of my shadow. And the depth of it enabled me to reach up higher into high levels of consciousness. And this is what we need to be aware of. It's not just about the light, it is also about really bringing in the wholeness of who we are. If we look at that, we are oneness. Oneness in this dualistic experience is both the light and the dark. And until you really look at the shadow within, you're not going to reach up to higher levels of consciousness. You have to go deep, integrate, see, release the darkness that you hold, almost like ballast. And when you can let go of multidimensional aspects, trauma, density in your energy field, you can then invite in and download and upgrade your system to integrate more light aspects of yourself. And this is what I do with my work, is that I integrate and assist people healing their multidimensional aspects. Sometimes there's an infiltration in the quantum field across all time and space. And then I assist them to integrate their multidimensional aspect so that they can then start to download that intelligence that they connect to. So it's been a massive journey for me, from my humble beginnings of meditation at my little spiritualist church to now sort of working with international healers, and also people that start to ignite their light expression and wondering, what on earth am I going to do with this to assist humanity? So my main field is absolutely upgrading people's systems through all time space, so the quantum understanding, and also assisting people, mentoring them through into, what am I doing with my hands? What am I doing with my light codes? And then the ripple effects then come in to assist others along that journey. But always in the back of my mind is, where did I go to? What happened during that time when I was 4 that kickstart my understanding? Was I a walk-in, which I feel that there is an element of that, but it's also the questioning that drives me into understand who am I and what is it that I'm capable of doing as I sort of move onwards and upwards.
Thank you for sharing your experience and your journey with us, Nicola.
Thank you.
You bring up a good point about possibly you're a walk-in, because you did say that you didn't fit in, or that something didn't seem right after your NDE.
Yeah.
Do you have any memories of where you went or what happened while you were unconscious?
I've been tapping into that question actually for quite some time. And before the call today, I set aside myself just to go a little bit deeper in my meditation last night and ask that question. And what they were showing to me was that I was taken to a higher level of consciousness. So it's a field of energy. So what wasn't shown was that what many NDE people would find is a situation and a place in physicality. And I know that the way that I work very much beyond the greater knowing, beyond the outer rim of this galaxy, this universe, a sort of multiverse. And it felt and it feels like that I left the body to enable that aspect of me to rise into and then hook into and then download into this physical body more of who I am. And I do that also when I bring in light codes and when I esoterically anchor in high levels of consciousness. So I can be Nicola, absolute me with ego, going about my normal business. But when I step into my my co-creative healing mode, I then can bring in high levels of consciousness and anchor it down, embody it. So I call upon and then release. I call upon and I release. But all the time, I'm having an upgraded experience for my ego. The ascension process is all about the upgrading of the human. We're already the high level of consciousness, but it's to hook into the high levels of consciousness and then anchor it down energetically into physicality. And I feel that that's what was occurring during that time as I went into my meditation last night, is the showing of, during that time, as I sort of deepened in, that it was higher levels of consciousness that I went to, that then I then downloaded back into this physical vessel as I came back into the physical vessel sparking up again, and so that the body doesn't die. So the element of the essence of the soul came back in, but it held a different template. It held something very different. And this is what I feel is what happens with a lot of people with NDAs, is that is that they come in, but they come in with high levels of consciousness. They know that they've got a bit of a mission. They know that they need to do this, this, and this. They start then sharing their story. So this is what, from my perspective, is happening, but it lay dormant as I shut it off because I held fear within my system, but it ignited back up again when I started doing some shadow work. And there's the ignition, and right back to here is that we shut things down momentarily until we're ready to work with it. So some people might have an NDE at say at 40, but not actually speak about it until they're 50. And something might not come online until they're 50. So until we're ready to work through the process of understanding who we are and start to question it, then we're not going to start to have that sense of remembrance back into the total essence of who we are. And so this is what I'm working on for myself as a healer, and how I sort of guide people through, from my perspective of how I work, is, guide people to be empowered. It's not that I'm going to do it for anyone. Everybody needs to do their own inner work. But the way I've done it is one way, and everybody can sort of download their own information also. But it gives a greater understanding from my own journey.
Do you feel that when you were on the other side, you connected with your higher self, and then while you made that connection, you got an upgrade? So then when you returned, maybe that's why you felt completely different.
Yes. I feel that there was a big soul-to-soul connection that came through, whether it was higher self or oversoul. I putting labels on things is not something that I overly do. But if we want to sort of say from a mind perspective, yes, the connection to a higher level of consciousness came in that upgraded the essence of the soul to come back in. I don't feel that I was a walk-in, which would be a completely different soul, but it felt like an essence of walk-in, an essence of something far beyond my understanding at the time of what actually did happen. But the more that I go deeper into myself, it always links me back to that moment of, there it is, there it is. But it's a beautiful experience in itself, regardless of that or not. The more that you can really open up and expand into more that you are, you can start downloading information. And that's a beautiful thing for anyone to experience.
I think a lot of people feel like they don't fit in or don't belong here. Why is that?
I'm just feeling that I've got some light codes coming in, so I can sort of bring that in. And what happens is if I bring light codes in, there's an interpretation that I'll be able to bring in for you. And so I might start sort of being a little bit sort of tweaky in my energy as sort of release anything from my field. Okay, Emma, yeah, thank you. So macchiato da bissimo kusha macchiato da bassiamo kusha macchiata. Is there a different way of rephrasing that question, please?
I think that a lot of people make the statement or feel that they just don't belong here or they don't fit in with society.
Okay. The light that is within inside of yourself is the light that you truly are. And anything that is not that of the light is a distorted version of yourself. So the illusion that you are living in is not resonant of the light that you are. Okay. So the light that you are is where you want to be. It's like, this is where I'm at. I can manifest in an instant. This is where I'm at. In this reality, this is not how it is. So the feeling of the distortion by being very sensitive souls then is what we're tapping into. So it's not that we don't belong, it's our perception that we don't believe that we belong. So until you switch your perception of the reality, you're not going to feel at home here. Okay? Thank you. So as we move through our healing journey, we enable ourselves to see the greater aspects of ourselves, and therefore with the ignition of light within is then you start to project outwardly and you shift your reality outwardly so that you do become more feeling at home here on earth. But it's the embodiment of the soul in the physical body that's the key point. I went through a massive stage, Jeff, of really feeling I wanted out. Definitely through my trauma in the very beginning, suicidal, massively suicidal. And through that sort of trauma, I was sort of seeking, searching. That was the very beginning of my stage. And many people that I work with have that sense of, I need out. I want to get out of here. It doesn't resonate. I don't like it. I don't feel at home here. And it's because we see the reality, which is the illusionary field. We're not seeing reality of heaven on earth, which is actually the original template, is what we came into experience. We came into experience with an original template of being. And with that original template of being, we're going to be this, we're going to be that, this, and this. But what happens is that we come into our families and then there's the DNA structure, the ancestral lines, past lives to deal with, all of this junk in your trunk that you got to deal with, karmic loops, all of this stuff. You got to sort through all of that in your incarnation before you actually get to see the truth of who you are. But during that process, that is where you've got to actually unpack and unpick with your discernment of what is right and what isn't right for you. Where is your truth? Where's your perception of the reality? But as you rise in your vibration, you start to then download the information that then presents this fabulous place to be, not the distorted field. You start then being a co-creator of your reality, not a victim, or something that you're sort of like a belief system's been forced upon you and a programming of your mindset. So we've got to really have faith in that. We're here for a reason, and we're here to change this world as light workers, starseeds. You've got to work through your shadow. You've got to see what this reality is all about by seeing the depth of you to see the heights of you. So not feeling quite here and wanting to be here, yes, absolutely. I experienced it myself. But the more that you can really tap into the energy of the release of what no longer serves you, the distortion, the illusion that you think that you are, which is not of light, then when you do your own inner healing and you go through that process, no matter how you do it, you've got to find your own way of doing it, is that then you start to then feel that you can settle within the system and then start to be the creator of your reality, which is extremely powerful and very, very blissful and peaceful and joyful to experience.
If we go back earlier, you mentioned that you came down with a batch of people in 2012. What do you mean by that?
So we have upgraded, so we have like star family members, souls that come in as a batch, a job lot of souls coming all in. And these batches awaken at certain key points during planetary evolutions of the universe. So when a planetary alignment comes in, we get a wave of light workers and starseeds come online. And these sort of souls could have a sense of union with yourself, but they're also sort of like they've chosen to awaken at these pivotal points on their journey. So we have these nodes along our linear timeline that we're going to experience offloading all of the experience of all our karmic stuff. We're going to deconstruct our life here. We're going to have this traumatic experience here. There's a key node here. And then with this, then there's this. So a life plan, you could say, or a template, the way I call it. And then these key points this is where I'm going to ignite. In 2012, unbeknown to Nicola, little Nicola, and all the other light workers that woke up during that time, the ignition of that light sparks. And that's where we get a wave of souls starting to understand themselves or understand that they're not happy in this reality. And then you get this sort of mass awakening that's starting to come in now because of the synchronicities of the universe bringing all of these bombardments of energy that's coming in, which many of your listeners would understand. You know, there's this sort of the planets are coming in to assist us as we connect to our celestial sense of oneness, that level of consciousness, and then we ignite that light within inside of ourselves. But then what happens is along the journey, as you start to discover yourself, is you start to then link up with all these souls that ignite your star family members. So you start to let go of old relationships, old friends that really don't resonate anymore, because you've got to let go of those so that you can bring in your star families. And this is what's happening megally at the moment, is the connection to other star seed workers, light workers, however you want to sort of label yourself to be, is that we start to want to connect, to create communities. And this is so important for the soul's journey, because you can then see different perspectives as you connect with all of these different people, because we can only see our own journey through our own senses. But as soon as you start then to see and listen to someone else, or you start doing some work with a group of people, you start seeing everything from all different angles. And then that gives you a union of hearts. It's more of a collective field of consciousness as we connect to others around us. And then you can then start bringing in your telepathic responses. You can start bringing in the heartfelt resonance and all of those beautiful sort of understandings when you sort of like really truly get your soul group together. So there's a yearning for that as well that comes in. That if you know, again, like that last question you said about not feeling you're fitting in, is because you're not fitting in. You're not with your soul family, and the synchronicities of the universe will bring those people in, but you've got to let go of the old. It's like an exchange system. You've got to let go of this so you can bring this in. You've got to let go of your darkness to bring in your light. There's only so much room. You know, there's only so much room.
Do you feel that you created this template that you speak of pre-birth?
Yes. Yes. Very interesting question, that, because different people will have different perspectives on it. it is a sort of like it's beyond my greater knowing, as my guides would say, beyond my greater knowing to the finer details of it all. But through my work and my understanding, through experience, it definitely is that everything that is presented for a reason, for me to achieve something along my linear timeline of what is it that I need to experience. So if you've got almost like this sense of a contract, is that from here to here, Nicola plays this part. She's completed that phase. Then you bring in a new, and then there's an option for an in and an out. And I've had these options actually given to me many a time, probably about 3 times. I say many, but 3 is many if you count it. But I've had my high self come through and say, do you want your out, or do you want to continue with your journey? So a presentation of my very first one that they actually said, do you want to, do you want to continue with, you've reached your full potential in this quota. Do you want to continue? Oh, let me think about that. Yes, let's do it. Why would I not? I always had an understanding, Jeff, that I was going to die when I was way over 100, because the infant journey, I really didn't resonate with very much. I'd rather sort of like cram everything, all these life lessons in this individual vessel. So, whether the vessel would be sort of used in a walk-in or not, my soul's evolution decided to stay and to evolve into the next step of the game, next evolutionary step, but all presented by me for me, from a higher level of understanding as I play the echo of the game.
All these light workers got turned on or switched on in 2012. What is going on with the planet that we're in need of all these light workers?
There was a hijack within the system. The hijack of the system that created a devolution, a de-evolving of humanity. The original template of being that is actually here on the planet, has always been here. But what they show me is like an overlay, which is a distorted field. Like if you could imagine 2 templates of a matrix system. If you're tapping into the original template of being and you're tapping into that beautiful energy, then that's what the reality that you're going to experience. If you're in the hijack system, which is the overlay of energy, which resonates at a lower frequency, then you're going to tap into that energy. It's like a radio wave. So radio 1, radio 2. What one you're going to tap into depends on your frequency. So the universe had, you could say volunteers come in, if say Dolores Cannon would sort of bring in that sort of scenario, and everybody has a different perspective of a truth behind it. From my own understanding of it is that, yes, there was a call to assist humanity through the process of raising the vibration of the earth. And this is what really drives me into assisting the light workers, the community, to assist them to raise in their vibration so that they can hold as a conduit, a vessel upon the earth to anchor in to the matrix, the original template. So we're shifting it. So many of us are doing grid work. So I'm in Avebury at the moment, near Stonehenge, where I've been doing some grid work to assist the trees as conduits to anchor more light. But what we do is that we have a clearer vessel so that we can bring that level of consciousness into the collective. Now, if we've got a collective unit of souls that are believing the mainstream media and all of that beautiful stuff that goes on, the hijack system, shall we say, then the collective then creates, and the collective energy is very, very powerful. But if we can, as light workers that hold more frequency, come in and anchor our light at a heightened frequency, that it's more potent, more amplified than the collective of many. So it doesn't take many light workers, especially when we come together in union. So we come together in union, you amplify your hearts, then you then amplify into the energetic field to then create a collective hive mind of hearts into, and then push that energy out into the grid so that others can pick up on it. So if we are reaching up to high levels of consciousness as we're pushing through the greater knowing, through the vow, we anchor that down. So there's a certain amount of light workers that would do that type of work, that are really forward thinking, that are really sort of high vibrational. And that what we do is we tap into those heightened levels of consciousness to draw it into our physicality, anchor it down through the body, so it then sits to be available for others to pick up on. Then you've got other light workers that might be running at a lower frequency, but they tend to push. So they like this sort of push and pull upgrading of the collective energy. And so neither one is any hierarchy. You know, somebody that's pushing through into high levels of consciousness, that's their role that they chose to do. Somebody pushing, holding, supporting, holding energy, that's the role. You know, if you've got somebody making candles, beautiful. Somebody doing massage, wonderful. Somebody linking into high levels of consciousness, downloading light codes, wonderful. No hierarchy with any of it. But it's to find out why you came here in the first place, which is the doing, to assist, that is the call to assist the rise of the vibration of the planet, and to deconstruct out of linking into the distorted field.
Are you saying that this realm that we live in is a simulated realm, and it used to be an amazing, beautiful place, but it got hijacked into this distorted reality?
Yeah.
Who did the hijacking?
Beautiful question. Let me see if we can get some information for higher levels of intelligence to come forward for that, because Nicola's perception of it could be a little bit distorted because of maybe listening to what other people's truths are within it. Okay, dan. Yan akrabare vishumo koshmakiata. So just give me 1 second, please. Just getting some downloaded information. So the distorted field of energy has come from the intention of souls to descend into darkness. So the fault of it, the perceived fault of, was it the Anunnaki? Was it the Dracos? Was it this? Was it them? Or it could be them. It was many. There was many that created the experience of the deconstruction of the light for the experience of darkness. So it wasn't a fact of that it was a thing that was bad. It just happened. And they're using the word as an experiment to actually see what does it feel like to hold such density. So the de-evolving of the light, what does it feel like to hold such density? What is the experience? Because here we hold emotional states, and the sense of duality of good and bad comes into play. And so the experience of that question then is that, was it a bad thing that happened? If you're in the thick of it and you're going through a really low ebb and a real big sticky patch of trauma, it's not easy to hold. That the expansion of the soul's journey is to experience that. And that's, I'm not belittling people's trauma. I've been through a fair amount myself. But when you're in it and you're at such a low density, then you would perceive it to be a bad occurrence of the world, okay? But the ascension is all about the rise back into the light. But to raise back into the light, you have to have been the darkness. And I think this is what we need to be aware of, which is the shadow work, which that I spoke about in the beginning, is that we can focus on the light and want to be lighty, lighty, light, light. But do we actually truly understand the depths of our darkness, of who once we were, and what part did we play upon the planet for the deconstruction to then create this hijack system? So it comes from massively sort of like, it's a real sort of like answer that can come in that really doesn't give us a clear answer, because there are many, many truths within it. So yes, there was the Anunnaki. Yes, there's all of this system that goes in from outer influences, infiltration of light. But in this dualistic experience of physicality, that's the game that is being played here. Well, if we move into the evolution of the soul, the ascension of the soul, back into unity, back into the light, then the deconstruction phase has been played. So the more that we focus upon the light, the more then that is what we then create, because we're creating for our own reality. The more we focus on the darkness, then we're going to create that as a perpetuating cycle of consciousness that's held within the collective. But the collective has to transcend it as a whole unit, but we can infiltrate that with our light. Rather than infiltrating with darkness, we infiltrate with light. So yes, there was a hijack system from many, many sources across a multitude of galaxies that played their part, and they played it well.
So do you feel that the collective has experienced everything that there needs to be felt in the darkness, and now they're trying to change it back?
Yeah, we're coming back into the golden age. It's already happened. We're just playing out the echo. We're just playing out the echo. We know that within the quantum field, everything is in the now. And so if we then adjust our vibration, we can tap into a high timeline of probability across the time continuum. So the more we can go deeper into ourselves to reach the higher levels of consciousness, download more that you are, reclaim any soul fragmentation, upgrade with your multi-dimensional aspect integration, you become a sovereign being of light. And there is the real beautiful nugget. There's the beautiful nugget of it all, is that you remember who you are. You start to reclaim back all of maybe the past lives, your ancestral lines, your multidimensionality. You start to have an understanding of who you are. That's sovereignty. And when you step into sovereignty and you really own that, then you are then a master creator of your reality. And that's where you transcend all of the collective energy, so that actually the past experience is the past experience, but we are going moving into the new, which is the rise of the planet into the universe, the multiverse. So it's not only just Gaia and the people upon it, it's the whole universe is expanding. So this is why we get the galactic alliances to assist, because we need to evolve, they evolve. So it's a beautiful unison of I do some work with you, there's an exchange of energy that comes back, and then there's the upsurge. So it's this beautiful perpetuating cycle spiraling up as we unify. Deconstruction, we're pulling apart. With separation, lowers the vibration. So the ascension of the planet, the ascension of the whole universe, is the upsurge, which is what's happening in this now moment.
When you are speaking the light language, would you consider that to be that you are channeling a being?
Very interesting. There are many different perspectives on channeling of a being, okay? If you look at it from a pure channel state, it might be that you're actually pure channeling something that you perceive is outside of yourself. As you evolve through the process of channeling, you start to then be a co-creator where you bring in a unison of your multidimensional aspects. So you're channeling yourself as an aspect that is Arcturian, Palladian, Mantis, Syrian, however you want to sort of put a label on the level of beingness or level of consciousness. So we could tap into Christ consciousness. We can tap into anything. It's like a massive, great big library of anything that we want to download. But we're not going to retain it in our energetic field because we're a pure channel. So the pure channel is that energy that flows through us. If you're then plugging in, getting the data come in, you can then either release the density within yourself, or you can gather more intelligence from the universe about what is this reality is all about. So it's multifaceted here, Jeff, because you and we've got to use our discernment of what we're tapping into when we're at the beginning of our journey. The main thing that I focus on when I'm working with people and on my YouTube channel is that I speak about being empowered and seeing that it is you that you're tapping into, because you are everything. I am you, you are me. And so when you have that sort of mindset and that understanding, that faith of that when you place your intentions to connect with that of the light and the highest frequency of that, that's what you're going to receive. So what pure channels through me is what is relevant for the person that is presented to. So I don't make a decision on where I channel it from. I don't say I want an Arcturian here, I want this here. I don't put any intention about where is it coming from, because that's separation. I am a conduit to receive what is needed in this now moment for the codes to come forward for the greater good for the individual that I'm working with, to present them with some codes that they then would be empowered to use to upgrade their system. Their choice, yes, no. Does it resonate? No, that transmission doesn't resonate because it wasn't for you. But if you're working one-to-one, I never, I used to in the beginning, never call upon any being that I perceive outside of myself, because I am those beings.
What's the difference between light language and light codes?
So light language and light codes are the same but different, okay? The expression of light that flows through you is a different way of communication. It's an expression of light from what's not a learnt linear language, so English, French, German. It's a learnt language of subjects, so hands, face, hair. We label things in separation. Light language is the pure light expression from higher levels of consciousness. So it pushes past the mind. Light codes and light language, which is the expression, and the codes that come forward are the codex that is held within the language. So a word or the language itself. So language expression. So it might be through the hands, it might be through the eyes, you might do some funny movement on the face, it might be coding with the hands, writing the codes, I call them fire codes, it might be a body movement, it might be art, it might be singing and toning. That holds a frequency, and the frequency of light would be resonant to the person that wants to receive the codes. You have a giver of codes and a receiver of codes. So when you give the codes, you're not only healing or assisting others, but you're also healing yourself, because the codes are being expressed through you. So like language is the expression, and the codes themselves are the complexity of the coding to clear energy, to bring in information, to activate. So the codes can be sort of like from different levels of understanding of what are they doing. So you can be clearing codes, activation codes, and information codes that you can translate into an understanding which you bring up from the subconscious. So we're starting to remember. So the codes will enable you to start to remember what you forgot, what this reality is all about.
What is the best way for someone to discover why they came here?
Ooh, like that question. It's a fulfillment of the soul's journey that ignites the soul into the light, a sense of completion from inside of yourself, a spark of inspiration. It holds a sense of guidance in the heart that allows the mind to transcend thought. So anything that we bring forward with that, what is my mission? It's the doing part of human beingness. We're doing what we came here to do by purely just being here. But it'd be, we want to do some stuff, don't we, as we come here? So the mission comes in, which is the doing, the human doingness of it, which is the mission, which is about the fun part. So the more that we can understand that we are human being first, then the mission will then start to come online and be more apparent. You get many people that would ask, why am I here? Why am I here? You're already here. You're doing what you're supposed to be. If you want to upgrade that into a doingness, fabulous, do your mission. But the main understanding of it is that we're a light worker or a starseed. In this system is that you're able to hold more light than those that aren't. So you may get some light workers that come in that don't awaken, and they choose to assist the light workers to awaken by creating trauma for them. Now, my ex actually was a light worker, and there was many times that I actually heard him during his sleep speaking light codes. But he chose not to experience the experience of becoming a light worker. He wanted to experience the density. So he came here for that reason, and he had many chances. Well, I wanted to assist him, but he chose not to because it wasn't in his template. There may be a time within his template that he may rise. So everybody will switch on when they need to. And the only journey that you should be concerned about is your own journey. We may want our friends and family to rise, but if they're not ready because they haven't gone through their nodes of experience within their linear timeline, you can't, you're going against their free will, you're going against their template. So what we can do is that we can gain access to the high self and maybe balance their energy, but you cannot change their template. That's going against the universal laws. But if somebody gives their permission for you to work with their energy field, then you can then go in and assist them. But it has to be where that person says enough is enough. I want to rise. I want to heal through this process. And that's where we can come in and assist. And then when that happens, then their mission will come online for them because they understand their beingness, and then the doing will come after.
How would a person discover that they're a starseed?
Do you know what, actually? It was really very beautiful that I didn't even know what a starseed was all those years ago. My daughter is a beautiful soul. She's a starseed. And usually find that they're within the family unit. We do sort of like, sort of choose those souls back in again, if there's a karmic loop come in. But for yourself to understand that if you're a light seed or not, a star seed or not, is that there is a deep knowing. There's a deep knowing when you are ready to know. So there may be little breadcrumbs that are presented to you. And I remember doing some research with my daughter. So she's on the autistic spectrum. She has personality disorders. And I was researching like Billio, trying to find out, how can I help you? How can I help you? Nurturing mother, nurturing mother. And I came across this sort of, it was presented, was about starseeds. And I'm like, oh my God, you're a starseed. Look, you're a starseed. So I would say one thing is that when you recognize somebody else is, then there is a reflection in it. And I didn't take it on board that I could actually be a starseed also, but I saw it in my daughter and in my son, but I didn't actually put one and one together to make two. I put it together to make one. I just saw it in her. So if people would question, am I a starseed? If you're even asking the question, I would say yes. It wouldn't be presented otherwise for you to even have it in your awareness.
Nicola, after watching this podcast, people may want to either find out more about you or reach out and ask you questions. What's the best way to do that?
So I have a YouTube channel called Nicola Light. So you can access my content on there. There's many videos on there throughout the years, and you can see the evolution of my journey through those times. So there's light language transmission. So if you just want to just have a little look on there, it's a really good place to start. And then I have a website called nicolalight.com, so nice and easy to follow. And then you can have a look on my website. All the descriptions below on my YouTube channel link up to a Udemy course, which is about activation and light codes to help and assist you understanding. So I have a course on there. There's a link, a referral link on my description below that. But then if you want to work one-to-one, then you can then sort of connect with me on a mentoring session or a healing session. So you can book that through my website on a scheduling system. Or, just ping me a message over on my YouTube, and then I can connect with you that way. I also have a Patreon and a membership on my YouTube that gives you greater access to more sort of personal messages and extra video content to sort of get to know me a little bit more. And we sort of gather and we'll do, we do some calls on there as well. So there's sort of several little ways. I also have a Facebook page as well, which again is Nicola Light. So you can sort of connect with me in all of those types of mediums.
Before we finish up, can you leave us with one last positive message?
Yeah. Okay, let's just tap in. I'll bring some light codes in and then I'll translate it for you all. Si anko subaki e soba la usukchunt urbaka isia an bakusha ai siwisi an galawesianki dada asya. Elambo subaki anto ufa osimokushumakiatam. Is when you start to ignite the light within, you'll start to see the light without. So the transcendence of the darkness of your trauma comes from the ignition from within. And like myself, it was the journey of that inward reflection, whether it's contemplation, whether it's walking in nature, connecting with the elements, or whether it's in meditation or breath work. Find a way that you find your own inner light. And from that ignition of light within, then you start to change your outer world with the creation, where the universe starts to bring in all the synchronicities to align for you, rather than aligning all the resonance or the mirroring of all that density that may be within your field. So you're like a projector. Start ignite the light from within, then the universe will be able to present to you everything that you are desiring, because ultimately you are a creator being. So just focus going within. That's the main message. But it's to keep things really simple. Try not to overcomplicate things. You know, go into breath work, things like that. Meditation. Just keep it nice and steady at first, and you will evolve. If I can do it from a suicidal perspective through major trauma in my life, then everyone can do it. It's whether you believe it or not. So have faith.
Nicola, thank you for that message, and thank you for being my guest.
Oh, it's my pleasure, and thank you. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.